We've all got that one drawer just overflowing with these things, right? Power bricks, wall warts, chargers, whatever you want to call them. They're totally essential. But have you ever stopped to think about what's actually going on inside one of these little plastic boxes? Well, today we're going to crack one open and find out.
Okay, just to see how far we've come, let's do a little comparison. On the left, you've got a 24-watt power supply from the 80s. It's a beast. And on the right, a modern 30-watt phone charger. And get this, not only is the new one ridiculously smaller, it's actually more powerful.
So how much smaller are we really talking here? Like half the size? A tenth? Nope, not even close. The modern charger is an incredible 50 times smaller by volume. That is just a massive, massive leap in technology.
Which of course leads to the big question. How on earth did they do that? How did engineers pull this off? Well, it wasn't just one magic bullet. It was a whole series of really clever improvements, and they all circle around one single crucial component.
And that component is the inductor. You could say it's the heart of every single modern power supply. And if we can wrap our heads around how it works, the rest of it is going to make a whole lot more sense.
So at its most basic, an inductor is really just a coil of wire. But the magic isn't the wire itself, it's what the wire does. It acts as a temporary little battery, a place to store energy for a split second, and that's where things get really interesting.
The absolute best way to think about an inductor is like a spring, but for electricity. When you push electricity into it, you're storing up energy in a magnetic field. It's just like squishing a spring. Then, when you cut the power, boing, all that stored energy is released in one powerful burst, kind of like that spring flying across the room.
And this is the key to everything. The ratio of time we spend squishing the spring versus letting it release determines the output voltage. By controlling that timing very, very precisely, the power supply can take that high voltage from your wall and perfectly convert it down to the low voltage your phone needs to charge.
So this brings us right back to our size problem. See, a bigger inductor, a bigger spring, can store more energy with each push. So if you want to get the same amount of power out of a much smaller inductor, you have to push and release it way, way faster. This whole process, doing things super fast, is called increasing the switching frequency.
But here's the thing. Changing the voltage is only half the job. The absolute number one most critical function of a power supply, the one thing that can never fail, is keeping you safe.
I mean, why is the power from your wall so much more dangerous than, say, a 9-volt battery? It all comes down to a direct connection to the planet Earth.
Right, so here's how the power grid is set up. The neutral wire in your house is literally connected to a big metal rod stuck in the ground. What that means is, if you're standing on the floor and you touch just that one single live wire, your body becomes the path of least resistance. You complete the circuit to the earth, and that's what makes mains power so incredibly dangerous.
So to stop that from ever happening, every single power supply has to create what's called isolation. It's basically a complete electrical break in the circuit. It's totally non-negotiable. It's the most important safety feature.
And the solution is pretty genius. We take our simple one-coil inductor and we evolve it into something called a coupled inductor. So instead of one coil of wire, engineers use two completely separate coils, but they're wrapped around the same magnetic core.
And this is the really clever part. The energy goes into that first coil, gets stored in the magnetic core, and then gets released through the second coil. The energy literally jumps the gap magnetically. This means there is never, ever a direct electrical connection between the dangerous high-voltage side and the safe, low-voltage side that you and your phone touch.
Okay, so now we've got our two core ideas down, transferring energy with our coupled inductor and staying safe with isolation. Now let's see how all these pieces actually fit together in a real circuit.
You might be surprised to hear that a basic functional power supply can be built with just these stages. First, a rectifier takes the AC from the wall and turns it into a kind of bumpy DC. Then a big capacitor smooths that out. After that, a tiny electronic switch chops that smooth DC up at an insane frequency to charge our coupled inductor. A diode on the other side acts like a one-way valve, letting the energy out. And finally, a few more capacitors smooth it all out into the clean, stable DC your device needs.
And yeah, that's basically it. That circuit would work. So if that's all you really need, then what is all this other stuff you see crammed onto the circuit board?
Well, all those extra parts pretty much fall into two big categories.
About a third of them are for extra safety and protection, and another third are there just to filter out all the electrical noise that the power supply itself creates.
Let's break that down real quick. The safety parts include things like a fuse, just in case something goes wrong, a varistor to soak up any big power surges from the grid, and a thermistor to manage that first big rush of current. Then you've got all the noise filtering parts. These are required for something called EMC, or electromagnetic compatibility. Basically, they stop your charger's high-speed switching from making your Wi-Fi act up or putting static on your radio.
So there you have it. We start with a really simple physical idea, storing energy like a spring. And then we build on it with layers of safety, precision control, and filtering. And what you get is the tiny, incredibly reliable, and absolutely essential little gadget we all use every single day.
This amazing miniaturization, it was all achieved by switching that energy spring faster and faster. And today, new materials like gallium nitride are letting engineers push those speeds even higher. It really makes you wonder, right? If this is the progress we've made in the last 40 years, what on earth will the charger of the future even look like?